Greetings and salutations, fellow book readers. This is Mark, and the book I will review today is Submission. I read the English translation of it, and also I listened to the audiobook of the original French version. My French is not very good, but the French books just sound much better in their original language. Before we continue, this is personalized limited edition of Submission with leather cover designed and made by me. At the end of the video, I will tell you a couple of ways of how you can get one for yourself if you are interested. Now let's get back to the review. Submission is a 2015 novel by French writer Michel Houellebecq. Houellebecq has authored a few poetry books and a number of novels, and he is considered by some the greatest living French writer. He's somewhat of a controversial figure because of his writings and comments such as this one. All religions are stupid, but Islam is the stupidest of all. In his defense, the comment was made a long time ago, and from reading Submission, I concluded that he must have changed somewhat his view on Islam. What is Submission about? It is about acceptance and adaptation to new circumstances forced by unexpected change, and the change was caused by self-inflicted defeat brought about by limited vision and narrow focus. It may well be impossible for people who have lived and prospered under a given social system to imagine the point of view of those who feel it offers them nothing, and who can contemplate its destruction without any particular dismay. The book is a hypothetical tale of an Islamist party winning the 2022 French presidential elections, and it fictitiously analyzes its causes and consequences. A bit of the plot. The story takes place in Paris during 2022 presidential elections, and the main character and narrator is François, a Sorbonne professor who is obsessed with the 19th century French writer Joris Carl Huysmans. François' life somewhat parallels the political turmoil in France. He has been stagnant professionally for many years, and the only pleasure left to him are sexual adventures with his students. At the same time, France is facing an existential dilemma brought about by growing inner divisions. Because of the social and demographic changes, and also some unforeseen coincidences, the two political parties that dominated and ran France have been eliminated, and the only two alternatives left are extreme right National Front and Islamist Muslim Brotherhood. The traditional parties decide that Islam is less of a threat than right-wing nationalism and vote the Muslim Brotherhood into power. François, fearing election violence, leaves Paris and takes shelter in a medieval town of Rocamadour. After a month, he returns to Paris and starts to notice small but progressive changes in his neighborhood and surrounding areas. At work, he is forced into generous retirement because of the ideological adjustments in the education department. This leaves him with free time, so he visits Liège-Abbé Monastery, where his hero, Huysmans, went back to Catholicism, and he starts to reflect on the whole idea of religious conversion. After some months, things start to stabilize both for François and France, and the new normal sets in. There are even some positive developments, such as François getting his job back, and crime and unemployment decrease significantly thanks to the new political doctrine. And as time passes, the system and the people accept and adapt to the changes and individually start to make decisions and take actions to continue in their new modified reality as comfortably as possible. People don't really care all that much about their own death. What they really worry about, their one real fixation, is how to avoid physical suffering as much as possible. And that's the basic plot. There are many more details which make the story interesting, but to know them you will have to read the book. Now, what are my thoughts about submission? I enjoyed the novel speculation about what if the Muslims came to political power, since it is a subject, especially here in Europe, many people are curious and some even worry about. For me, the grand idea of the book is that for the society and individual to exist, there needs to be a system of rules and values, because their absence creates chaos and vacuum. And vacuum creates opportunity for the external, often destructive forces to move in and take over. In Europe, the vacuum creation began a couple of centuries ago, and there is nothing that says it better than the line from the book, "Europe has already committed suicide." And Europe is no exception. All great civilizations cut their own veins and bled to death. Society to function well and continue its existence needs to fear something. It could be God or government or anything. Because once the fear disappears, guilt moves in and collective social suicide is not far off. The mere will to live was clearly no match for the pains and aggravations that punctuate the life of the average Western man. The book is full of ironies. I read somewhere that submission mourns the decline of the secular values of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. But to me, the plot is the consequence of the very values it is supposed to mourn, or rather the uncontrolled indulgence in them. We have perverted what was founded as secularly sacred. Excess is always counterproductive, and our Western need for unlimited liberty and never-ending pursuance of happiness is killing us. To the Muslims in the book, probably as in real life, the enemy was not the supporters of the far-right National Front, but the people in the center who lived by those secular values. The irony is they are the ones who voted the Muslim Brotherhood into power and created the final stage of the collective cultural suicide. I think it is best said in this quote from the book. For these Muslims, the real enemy, the thing they fear and hate, isn't Catholicism. It is secularism. It is atheist materialism. They think of Catholics as fellow believers. Catholicism is a religion of the book. Catholics are one step away from converting to Islam. The satire of the book is the moral corruption and weakness of conviction of the French intellectuals, who easily and willingly accept new values and lifestyle imposed on them. They were really willing to pay to avoid any trouble. No doubt they had overestimated the ability of academics to make a nonsense of themselves. It had been years since an academic title gained you access to major media. Even if all the university professors in France had risen up in protest, almost nobody would have noticed. But apparently, they hadn't found it out in Saudi Arabia. They still believed, deep down, in the power of the intellectual elite. It was almost touching. Well, the book itself is a parallel between personal and global changes. The changes in one man's life are no different from the changes in the society. They are interdependent and one causes the other. Francois' own midlife crisis, brought by his uncontrolled behavior that led to the feeling of his life being over, is reflected in the general lack of values and moral decline of the society, and the subsequent feeling and panic that the French Republic came to its end because of the Islamic Party politically taking over the country. Francois is a non-believer who sees the world as a dark, unfriendly place. He seems to be unable to find any reasonable motivation to go on. I didn't even want to fuck her. Or maybe I kind of wanted to fuck her, but I also kind of wanted to die. I couldn't really tell. Everything in his life, work, sex, shopping, is a meaningless routine, and the only salvation seems to be the possibility of profound change. Also, this is where France finds itself on the eve of the presidential elections. Confused and lost, and because of some unintentional choices and coincidences, there are only two alternatives left: right-wing nationalism or moderate Islam. The people in the center decide the Muslim rule is less threatening, maybe because it feels further and more removed from their daily reality, so they vote for Islam. Is this scenario possible to transpire in real life? Not very, at least not in the near future. I think there is still some sanity left in us, but for how long is anybody's guess. And perhaps the final vote was irrelevant, since regardless which party won, the long-term results would probably be very similar. In the book, Houellebecq implies that there isn't much difference politically between right-wing conservatives and Muslims, and the real enemy are the people in the center, and they were already beaten and eliminated in the first round of the election. Submission is a work of fiction and satire, but there are some truths in it. Not the specifics, but the large ideas such as the social decline and need for change. The book uses the decline of the Roman Empire as an example of where we are today. No doubt the Romans had felt that theirs was an eternal civilization, right up to the moment their empire fell apart. Were they suicides too? So the question is, do we have time to build Empire 2.0, or have the barbarians already knocked down the gates and there is only rape and pillage to look forward to? Houellebecq is implying that EU is in similar place the Roman Empire was in the 4th or 5th century, and right-wing nationalists and Muslims of today are the barbarians and Christians of back then. And as the Christianity was able to restructure Rome into the Holy Roman Empire, which survived into the mid-19th century, the book speculates that Islam might be able to do the same for the EU. We can also compare the French political crisis in the book to the one in Germany in the early 1930s, when the Nazi Party was voted into power as an antidote to the increasing chaos of the Weimar Republic, with some positive signs initially, but a long-term disaster. Further, Francois, who is dealing with his own personal crisis, spent his life studying the 19th century French writer Joris Huysmans, who is best known for his decadent novel A Rebours, or Against Nature. Huysmans was an atheist but later converted to Catholicism, and Francois links his own spiritual journey with Huysmans and uses it as inspiration. When he seems to hit the spiritual bottom, he takes a trip to Houellebecq monastery, which is highly symbolic, since this is where Huysmans converted to Catholicism, and we can see Francois debating his own spiritual future, and his final decision is rather predictable, and I don't think it surprised anybody. Perhaps Houellebecq, the man who 20 years ago said that all religions are stupid, is slowly coming to the conclusion that to continue, atheism might not be sufficient, and maybe he is considering his own conversion. In 2021, he said, "When a country, a society, a civilization gets to the point of legalizing euthanasia, it loses in my eyes all right to respect. It becomes henceforth not only legitimate, but desirable to destroy it. So that something else, another country, another society, another civilization might have a chance to arise, which might not be pro-religion, but sounds anti-atheism. To sum it up, submission can be seen a bit as a 21st century version of Orwell's 1984. It is less dystopian since it deals with the immediate future, And as we all know, it takes time for the consequences to materialize. I don't think the novel can be called anti- or pro-Muslim. Islam in the book is just a tool that appears to fill the vacuum created by the political and social mistakes, but there could have been a number of other possibilities. Islam and its rising power is currently a popular topic in Europe, especially in France, because of the large and growing number of Muslim immigrants, thus it being chosen as the boogeyman of the story. Further, Islam is shown as somewhat pragmatic and realistic ideology, able to separate itself from the religious doctrine when necessary. Ben Abbas had kept his distance from the anti-capitalist left. He understood that the pro-growth right had won the war of ideas. The young people today had become entrepreneurs, and that no one saw any alternative to the free market. But his real stroke of genius was to grasp that elections would no longer be about economy, but about values. And that here, too, the right was about to win the war of ideas without a fight. Anyway, the book is highly speculative fiction, and that's how it should be read. So enjoy the tale and don't overanalyze its implications for the real world. Okay, let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transformed into a hardcover leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I used grade A, naturally tan hide. I buy from a tannery in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of the leather myself. First, I designed the cover, which what I did here, I used the painting of Mona Lisa, which is the most important art piece displayed in the Louvre in Paris, and somewhat representative of our Western cultural achievement, but here it is adapted to the new reality presented in the book. Mona Lisa forced to wear niqab, what most people erroneously call burqa, and I thought it went nicely with the general subject of the book. This is the back with the blurb, and inside of the front cover I printed a quote from the book. If you want to see a more detailed video where I explain how I transform paperback into leather-bound hardcover, click on the link in the description. I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100, so if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend the $100, but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel, and for every 100 donations I will make a lottery and draw one name, and the winner will receive the book. So if you are cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much, so thank you in advance. One more thing, when you make your donation, remember to include the title of the book you would like to win. The book itself is beautiful. Visually, it has a very nice texture, it smells great, and the more you handle it, the more beautiful it will become. And it makes a great gift for yourself or somebody who appreciates books. So, if you want one, don't snooze, or you might lose. Well, that's it, so let's end it here, and until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.